I'm an avid fan of the teenage drama genre. I watch it all, from supernatural drama like Buffy, Teen Wolf and Vampire Diaries, to your modern teen drama like Elite and Riverdale. And none of them have ever been this relatable. Hi all, my name is Ryan and welcome to my channel What the Pop, where we discuss pop culture in general and Buffy a lot. I debated for a while whether I would do a video on Young Royals after I binge watched it the moment it came out. But ultimately I've decided it's so good it needs talking about why it's so good. And clearly by the amount of little interview and compilation clips popping up on social media, I'm not the only one who thinks so. One of the common themes in the reviews of Young Royals is how real the characters are, how they portray fully fleshed out, extremely relatable characters. So how then does a show about a royal prince at an elite boarding school manage to be so damn relatable? First, let's talk about what the show does, I don't want to say badly, but I suppose unoriginally, and get that out of the way. And there isn't a lot to talk about here. The main issue is that they embrace some normal teenager drama tropes. You have Simon, our gay socialist outsider protagonist, August, our popular jock bully antagonist, and Wilhelm, our central protagonist, who falls for the outsider. You have high school love entanglements with Felice wanting Wilhelm, Wilhelm wanting Simon, August wanting Felice, and Sarah wanting August. Needless to say, like most teenage drama, it gets messy. You have students backstabbing each other, parties, drugs, alcohol, first love, first kisses, sex, and the fallout that usually accompanies those things. None of these plot points are terribly original. We've seen them done in teenage drama time and time again. But that's where the negatives for this show end. At its heart, this show is a love story on the developing relationship between Wilhelm and Simon. And despite the elite boarding school setting, and the main character being a prince, their relationship feels authentic. And that authenticity lies at the heart of why Young Royals is so good. I mentioned in one of my recent Buffy videos that Joss Whedon said about Buffy, "I pitched the show as the ultimate high school horror show, very basically taking the pain, humiliation, alienation, and all the problems of high school and ballooning them into horrific proportions. The show only works if it resonates. That's the most important thing." And I think Young Royals embraces that mantra without the supernatural trappings and use of metaphor the way Buffy did. And as a result depicts characters that are very much human, with various issues and motivations, flaws and failings that you would see reflected in people you know. And it's this aspect of familiarity that enables us to connect to these characters and ultimately why they resonate with us. As Joss said, it only works if it resonates. So why then make Wilhelm a prince and base it in an elite boarding school? Why not just have this story play out in a regular high school? Well, as Joss said, you want to take these things and balloon them to horrific proportions. Fiction often depicts a hyper-real setting to increase consequence. When the potential for a fall is greater, the cathartic release in emotional moments is also greater, resulting in increased empathy and therefore resonance with the experiences of the characters. In other words, we increase the stakes to enhance the drama and the subsequent payoff from the eventual emotional release. The drama at the heart of Young Royals lies in two main aspects. Classism, which is a wedge between Simon and Wilhelm, and social status, which places restrictions on what Wilhelm can do. And the first episode of this show does a magnificent job of framing those issues in the context of this elite boarding school, and how that will play out through the season, giving us reference points for what's at stake. Classism is a fairly topical subject for today, with the growing divide between the top 1% and everybody else. What's more, it's a common theme in love stories, a means of creating conflict between two main protagonists without it being directly about their character. From Jane Austen to Bridgerton, 50 Shades of Grey, and many rom-coms, the class conflict between main characters has been a mainstay in literature generally, and romance specifically, for almost as long as we've written stories. It's known as assortative mating, and basically means a relationship with someone outside your class. Simon has left his old school and entered an elite boarding school to support his neurodivergent sister, who was having issues at their old school. He comes from a working class, single parent family, the son of a Latina immigrant mother, and a father they have little to do with. At the start of the series, Wilhelm is the second in line to the throne and has been sent to the boarding school as a PR move because of some incidents that made news and were a bad look for the royal family. So when Wilhelm and Simon meet, the difference in their social status is shown immediately upon Wilhelm's arrival at the school. As a prince, the epitome of the 1%, his entire lifestyle is at odds with the socialist-leaning Simon. Wilhelm arrives with his brother, Crown Prince Eric, in a Ferrari, an expensive sports car. Image and social status is a major part of this environment, and it's established through visuals, subtext, and character interactions. After August greets Wilhelm, he calls over Alex.
Alexander. Alexander Berger. Son till Ulf Berger. Äger av Berger Investments.
The fact that social status is so important in this environment is established in a few lines. August introduces Alex and then immediately gives him legitimacy in this environment by detailing who his father is and what his father does. Basically, he's part of the 1%, he deserves his place here. We see what they think of Simon shortly after in this scene.
Och bara, tjena, spira. Som att vi ska ha något gemensamt. Usch.
August and the children of the other modern nobles hold fairly traditional conservative values. The students in Wilhelm's class advocate to lower taxes, but admonish the welfare scam. In response, Simon says this.
Det är konstigt. Varför säger man skatteflykt och bidragsfusk? Det är okej när rika fuskar, men när fattiga gör det så är det fett skevt. Det heter ju inte ens bidrag för de rika, det heter ju avdrag. Men som din farsa, vet du hur mycket han får i EU? Ja, jag vet ju vilka de största bidragstagarna i vårt land är. Simon!
Immediately, it places Simon and Wilhelm as adversaries, the haves versus the have-nots. But when we first saw Simon singing in the choir, Wilhelm had this reaction. So we know that Wilhelm is already drawn to him, and the opening scenes let us know that Wilhelm wants no part of the establishment he is a part of. He just wants a normal life. When Wilhelm and Simon officially meet for the first time, we get this exchange.
Jag tyckte det var bra det du sa där inne, Simon. Det var bra sagt.
Okej. Varför sa du inget då?
För att jag inte... Jag ska inte yttra mig politiskt.
We can see in this first moment that Wilhelm holds values closer to those held by Simon, but his destiny, his birthright as a prince, prevents him from pursuing and expressing these ideals. Earlier in the episode, August had asked Simon as a non-resident student if he could get booze for Wilhelm's initiation party. Simon was thinking about it so his sister could have some fun, but after Wilhelm's brief interaction with Simon that we just saw, Simon wants to do it. He is similarly drawn to Wilhelm. August acts as a gatekeeper between them. He wants Wilhelm to make friends that he deems appropriate, i.e. those that are within his class. August says, "Your only mistake was that you hung out with the wrong kind of people. I understand that you want to feel normal, go to a normal school, meet normal girls, go to normal parties. But how did that work out? The problem is that normal people will never see you as one of them." But as I said earlier, Simon and Wilhelm are both outsiders. Simon is working class and suffers from that classism in the way his school peers generally treat him. But Wilhelm is equally an outsider. He's in a very small class, the royal family. He's essentially an outsider to everyone else because he will always be treated as a prince and seldom as a direct peer. We see this in his initial meal at the boarding house, when he has to tell the other guys they are allowed to have their own opinions around him. When he becomes Crown Prince, that increases dramatically. He is further isolated and distanced from those around him. This shared status as outsiders in this world draws them together and gives them a shared experience. It is one that all of us relate to. At some point in our lives, we have all been the outsider, either not being allowed in or choosing not to be in. The question for Simon and Wilhelm is that shared status enough to overcome the class divide? Before Wilhelm even enters the school, the very first thing we are shown after the nightclub incident is Wilhelm at odds with the expectations placed on him and the control that it has over his life. He wants a normal life. He wants to be free of the structure and control that currently governs his everyday existence. The Queen, Wilhelm's mother, initially says, "Even though Eric is Crown Prince, you still have responsibilities. And remember, being a prince is not a punishment, but a privilege." So in the first few minutes, the show does an excellent job of setting one of the motivating factors for our main protagonist's internal struggle. Being part of this group is so important that Wilhelm allows himself to go through the initiation. It's an interesting moment though, because it's a moment where you see the disparity between Wilhelm's inherent social status by the circumstance of his birth and his disconnect from what that affords him. His mother said being a prince is not a punishment but a privilege, and had Wilhelm embraced that, he would never have had to go through the initiation, as there is not a single person in that group that would reject him had he refused. For August at that point, it was all about impressing Eric, the Crown Prince and future king, and he would not have isolated his brother regardless of the circumstances. And we see how social status and societal expectation are major factors in our main story. Our growing relationship between Wilhelm and Simon, as Wilhelm has all of these social pressures on him to uphold the royal family. This results initially in a rather specific internalized homophobia. After Simon and Wilhelm first start touching fingers and holding hands during the movie, Wilhelm walks out. He sees the inscription on the wall, "You own the school, you are responsible for its legacy." This reflects what the Queen said to Wilhelm earlier in episode 1. You still have responsibilities. We see him rubbing his chest. This struggle between his desire for Simon and his responsibility to the crown is causing a physical reaction. I feel it's important to note that his internalized homophobia isn't specifically about him liking boys. He has no issue pursuing Simon, initiating their first interactions, or the contact that led to them holding hands. His homophobia relates directly to his position and the societal expectations of that position. When Simon comes to find him, he kisses him. Wilhelm doesn't react, and when Simon kisses him again, a loud noise startles them. Wilhelm, still struggling with his desire and his responsibility, tries to say he's not like that. But as Simon turns to walk away, he can't let him go. Wilhelm grabs his shirt, pulls him to him, and after a brief moment gives into his desire and they kiss more passionately. At school the next week, after Wilhelm has had time to think about it and the social implications, Wilhelm is reinforcing that he's not like that. And he thinks they should forget about it. But he can't stop thinking about Simon and invites him to spend the weekend with him. We get an important line here from Eric when Wilhelm admits he wants to stay at the school for someone. "Hey Will, enjoy yourself. Soon people will start having opinions." Wilhelm responds, "They don't care about me. Because you're Crown Prince, they have opinions." This is a massive amount of foreshadowing for what transpires next. Wilhelm receives a call from his mother, the Queen, telling him Eric has died. With the death of Crown Prince Eric, Wilhelm now becomes the Crown Prince, and with it comes the increased level of scrutiny and responsibility to the crown. The societal expectation on him has just increased dramatically. Chosen one stories are a common fantasy trope, and the chosen are usually burdened by a great purpose or destiny. And often a major part of their struggle is whether they embrace that destiny or rail against it. Buffy the Vampire Slayer was a perfect example of a chosen one who, while she embraced her destiny as the Slayer, still railed against the constraints it placed upon her. She, like Wilhelm, just wanted a normal life. When his brother dies, Wilhelm becomes the crown prince and is essentially a non-fantasy version of a chosen one. A prince is born into this destiny to one day become king, and as such is bound to that destiny. The only means of escaping that destiny, as Crown Prince Eric did, is death. Chosen ones in general evoke sympathy from us because of the inevitability of their destiny. So while Wilhelm may be a prince and then crown prince, we see how this places constraints on what he can do, what he can say, what he can be, and who he can be with. There is an unavoidable clash between what Wilhelm desires for himself and what is being mapped out for him by his birthright. He has effectively had his agency removed. As Crown Prince, the stakes are now raised even further, and the drama goes with it. With expectations of him dramatically increased, we are more fearful for him getting caught. And while we'd like to believe that in a modern society the Crown Prince being gay isn't a scandal, framed in the environment of this narrative, we know that social status and societal expectations are against him. He exists within an institution that exhibits systemic homophobia. So while we are rooting for Wilhelm and Simone to be together, we are fearful that circumstances will tear them apart. With the leak of the video, pressure around them increases further. And while Wilhelm tries to pursue Simone in secret, Simone doesn't want that life for himself. He doesn't want to be someone's secret. So when they hug and Wilhelm tells Simone that he loves him, although Simone doesn't say it back, we know that he does. And we feel sympathy for them because they are being torn apart by circumstances outside of their control. Their level of agency over their lives and decisions is vastly reduced. There are no good outcomes here. One of the things I love most about Buffy is the central theme expressed in the Season 2 episode Lie to Me. You always have a choice. It may not be a good one, but you have a choice. And this is where we are left at the end of Season 1 of Young Royals. Wilhelm is left with a philosophical quandary. Having learned that his love can't be hidden away, what will he give up for it? Essentially, he has a choice to make. Love and desire, or societal expectation. As I said at the start, one of the common themes in the reviews of Young Royals is how real the characters are, how they portray fully fleshed out, extremely relatable characters. Many teenage dramas today depict a hyper-real, highly stylized fantasy lifestyle, one that is social media ready. You look at the main cast of, say, Riverdale, and they're all gorgeous. I could literally stare at Reggie with his shirt off for ages. And none of them have any physical flaws. Not one of them looks like a teenager, and they all have Instagram fitness influencer bodies and fashion influencer wardrobes. The storylines are absurd. They lack the intelligence and metaphor behind why something like Buffy is so great, and ultimately it's very difficult to relate and connect to the characters as a result. Don't get me wrong, it's still great, easily consumable entertainment. It still has some very emotional moments, and I still watch it, despite it being the literary equivalent of a puddle. But it doesn't resonate on any level. It's popcorn entertainment. It's pretty, it's easily watched, and it's forgettable. And that's fine. Not everything we watch needs to resonate or have a deeper level of meaning. Not everything needs to be a philosophical lesson. Entertainment can be just a pretty distraction. But when we connect to the characters, when their thoughts, feelings and experiences resonate with us, we think, we care and we feel. And ultimately, that's what good art should do. One of the most relatable aspects of Young Royals compared to most teenage dramas is the casting. It is refreshing that in a show about teens that the cast actually looks like teens. Omar, who plays Simon, is the oldest of the main cast at 22, but doesn't look it. He easily fits in with Edvin, who plays Willem, who is 18. Malt, who plays August, is 20, and Nikita, who plays Felice, is also 20. Couple that with the cast looking normal. And by normal I mean they don't look like supermodels. They don't have perfect square jaws, cheekbones you could cut yourself on, flawless smooth skin, chiseled physiques and salon-styled hair. They just look like regular teenagers, complete with shock horror acne. A real-looking cast makes their problems more highly relatable, because as teens in a social setting where image is important, it is far easier to relate to someone normal-looking than to someone who would be perfectly at home in a fashion show. What adds to that is their wardrobe. The clothes they wear are just regular clothes teenagers would be wearing anywhere. They're not the most stylish, they're not fresh off a catwalk in Milan, they're not like something from GQ or Vogue. There's no $4,000 ensemble here just to be worn to school. It's jeans and hoodies and t-shirts and dresses, simple and realistic. Overall, the casting and the styling of that cast contributes greatly to the relatability of these characters. Looking real is the first step though, feeling real is the next. And boy do these characters feel real. There's no good guy and bad guy. The world isn't that black and white. Although August is depicted as the bad guy, he's coming from a place of desperation. He's operating like most of these characters in a moral grey zone. And almost all the characters here are in that moral grey zone. They all do something that is morally questionable. Simon pushes August around, has his friends back him up to do it. His friends said it isn't like him. Wilhelm lets another character take the fall for the drugs. Sarah kisses August despite knowing he's with Felice, her friend. In a time when most teenage dramas have a big bad, a major villain for the season, it's refreshing to allow life be that villain, to see main characters be each other's antagonists depending on the situation. Because that's how life works, and the reality of that makes all of these characters, to various degrees, sympathetic and relatable, even the ones you want to hate. Thanks for watching. If you like what I do, please like, subscribe and click the notification bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video. If you've disagreed with anything I've said or have anything to add, put it in the comments below, and I'll see you next video.